And we're still on the word of a king. But, and I got to say, it might be boring to you. Some of it might be a little boring, but it should open your eyes to something. That the differences that we were looking at with those new versions versus what we're looking at here is the difference between night and day. And I think that needs to be said because they are trying to tell you that there are errors in the King James Bible or there's changes in the King James Bible. In fact, we'll get into that in just a minute. Look at Matthew 5:18. Matthew 5:18. Matthew 5:18, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Now I've heard a lot of things about jots and tittles, but a jot is an iota in Greek. That's why we say there's not one iota of difference, because it's that small. It's the smallest letter in the Greek alphabet. The jot is nothing more than a slash. You could say like an apostrophe, or it's a breathing mark, I do believe. I could be wrong about that. I don't know if those exist in Hebrew, but they have breathing marks in Hebrew, I think. But I know they have them in Greek also. And notice, remember the Koine thing? Okay. Where I put a big A up there, but it had a breathing mark. Okay. That tells you there's a difference in the pronunciation of that E. Anyway, not embarrassing myself again here. I cannot defend every jot or tittle in the King James Bible. It's not my place. I don't have to. I just have to believe God that He did and that He has defended it and that He has preserved it. That's the only thing I have to believe. I couldn't begin and, the hundreds and hundreds of hours it would take to study all this out, going backward to 1611. I just have a basic understanding of it that we're going to talk about today. When it comes to the King James Bible, you're going to hear three main accusations. One of them has nothing to do with the version itself. It's just they attack King James and say that he was a homosexual. There's no proof of that. Okay? They say, well, he was effeminate. Okay. He was sickly all his life. He was thin as a rail. He had pale skin and red hair. Now you think about that. It's not like he's going to come across as a burly-haired man. He came across as weakly, okay? And of course, you say, well, do you know that for a fact? I don't know, but it had nothing to do with the King James Bible. The things about King James that I've read and the things that he wrote was a man of conscience, was a man about doing right, his children doing right. So I don't believe it. And the guy that brought the accusation waited till, I think, 25 or 100 years, I can't remember, 25 years after he died, which is a terrible thing to do. If somebody made accusations about, your dead loved ones 25 years after they're dead, and you're like, where did that come from? They said, well, he loved to hang around men. You mean he wasn't a whoremonger like the rest of the kings that reigned before him and after him? Okay, anyway, I'm not here to defend King James. But they'll bring that up, like if that was even remotely true, then that discredits your Bible. Well, what about the lesbian that was on the NIV committee that helped design the words and everything or choose the words? Does that discredit the NIV? I'm just saying they're saying it actually does. No, what I'm saying is if that were the case, then it works both ways, but it doesn't. Anyway, King James didn't work on the King James Bible. He didn't work on the version. I guess that's the point I should make. And then they'll say that there's 70,000 changes to the KJV since 1611. 70,000. Everybody says, oh, well, it's obvious we don't, They say, well, brother, you don't have a 1611. You have a 1769 King James Bible. No, I've got a 1611, and I'll prove it to you today that I do. So And that was Bob Jones III that postulated there were 70,000 changes. And there's not even close to that many. There may be 25,000, but we'll talk about that. So, in fact, the actual number, according to men who have collated the editions, includes chapter headings, changes, and marginal notes, is 24,000 variations. Additions, you can say revisions, additions, additions to the King James Bible. I've heard as many as 13. I think there are 7 that matter, where it's the purified text, purified 7 times, and we'll talk about that. There are 3 classes of variations. There's the errors of the typesetter. In other words, when they typeset the Bible, they've got all the leaves that the translators produced, handwritten stuff. That, by the way, was gone over 7 times. Every word in a King James Bible was gone over 7 times. And it went from committee to committee to committee, from group to group to group, from man to man to man, and it was checked. And it ended up being 7 times for every word in there. So if there was any problem, they would have brought that up, okay? So they give it to the typesetter, and the typesetter, and we're talking about 1607, I think, or somewhere in that. They'd be a little bit later than that. 16. I think it took them an entire year to typeset it, which I thought that was pretty good, considering they're having to hand do it. And I don't know who's carving the letters. I don't even know how they'd even produce those things, but they did. And so we have errors in typesetting. If you can imagine over 1,000 pages and typesetting, and they're saying that there's only about 350 to 450 typesetting errors. That, to me, is a miracle. We're talking Red Cross the Red Sea miracle. If I've got one page that I've produced with modern stuff, and it's after I've reviewed it, looked at it several times, and it's got less than 4 errors, I appended it to the back of my Bible as inspired. But there's nothing back there, because even what I've got today has typos in it. And some of them weren't mine. It was the computer that typoed it. Anyway, so there are other type variations from 1611. We'll talk about that. Other variations dealt with by orthography, which is the art of writing words and proper letters and spelling. Everything from fonts to how you spell a word. That's orthography. Let's talk about some first-class alterations. Now, I've got a few things. This is didn't mean to do that. This is a photographic reproduction of an original printing, 1611 printing of the King James Bible. Now, when I say it's the first edition, it is, but it's the second issue. And I don't know what that means. If they had a second issue, because what we're going to find out is, and it's only the New Testament because of cost. If you can imagine where they've taken photographs, they've reduced them in size, and that's what they're putting on the page there, trying to clean them up. They said they had to remove dirt, blood, all kinds of things, just so they could put that on there. And it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat to look at. You can read it if you can get past the misspelled words, not misspelled, but the different spellings of words. And the font that they used was real, Gothic kind of font. But I have that as far as a photographic reproduction of it. Then I have this that came out with the 400th anniversary, put out by, I think Holman did it. No, Zondervan. Zondervan put this out. Now, Zondervan claims that this is a replica of an original first edition printing of a King James Bible. I don't know if it's the same one they picked up here, whether it be that word keeps escaping me, issue, whether it was the first issue, second issue, I don't know, but here it is. And I checked some things out, some things check, some things don't. There seems to be some corrections in this that supposedly was not in the first edition. That were the error. In other words, they corrected the error. Now maybe they corrected that error from the first issue to the second issue. I don't know. But anyway, some of it's there and some of it's not. But I'll pass these around here before I'm done, just so you get an idea what it looked like. And what I want to tell you is that you do not have a 1769. Oh, you've got the updated spelling. But what you have in your lap is a King James Bible, word for word. That's what you've got. I mean, once you get the errors out of the printing errors out of it, and remember, they're taking what they get from the translators, and then when they go back to correct it, they have to go back to what the translators gave them to verify, no, it's not this, it's this. And I can't even imagine how they typeset this thing and only got 450 printing errors. Anyway, so when he talks about first-class alterations there, 1611 edition, you know, a capital L in Lord in Exodus 14:10. You know, where somebody forgot to put the capital letter in there, they put in a small letter. I think I checked that one out. It's a capital L. Now, I don't have it here because it's only in the New Testament. So I didn't have the photographic one to verify. The word shout to shall, Leviticus 4:35, the word shall was in there. I believe it was corrected. Or shout. It was corrected to shout. Okay. Now, other way around, shall. And then this one was in there, travailest to travailest. Now, my wife and I we had a row this morning over this thing anyway. A lot of times when they and it could have been the printers that did this, they didn't bother to look at how they spelled the word, they just sounded it out. And that's the reason why you could have multiple spellings of the same word, sometimes even on the same page of a first edition printing of a King James Bible, maybe several editions actually, for a long time. Why? Because English was still young enough that they hadn't established a standard of spelling. And it was much later, that's at 1769 they accuse you of having, is when they updated all the spelling. But it's the same words. It's just they update it, they standardize the spelling of the word. So, travailest, I mean, it sounds like travailest, you know. You can pronounce it like that, but that's what they put in there. By the way, that is in here. That is in here. And they changed it, updated it to travailest, okay? That's in Isaiah 13:8, 21:3. Now, what I've got there is I mentioned something about homographs. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. But words that are spelled, because here's the problem. Look at Proverbs 6:11. Proverbs 6:11. I mean, I assume it's a mistake, but the way they could spell, it may not have been considered a mistake. In Proverbs 6:11 it says, so shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth or traveleth. See, it could be, that's the same spelling. No, but look at the word that they put in. Isn't it the same spelling? Travelest versus traveleth. It's a little bit different. Oh. Yeah. Traveleth. Okay. Anyway, that would have been an issue because it doesn't look like travaileth. It looks like somebody that's traveling. So, but you have words like that. You have words that are homographs. I guess this isn't one. But you have words like that in the Bible, like the word bat can be, you know, somebody with a baseball bat and the animal, the bat. Bark, you know, a dog barks, but you got bark on a tree. So you have that going on. I don't know if that was the issue. Probably not. They just spelled it like it sounded, and then they had to correct it. In Ezekiel 14:8, sons to sons with a capital S. You see how minor these things are? I mean, they are minor, but they're also important. But that was corrected. And I believe that what I've got here has the small letter. Now this one, turn to Hosea 6:5. This one kind of even threw me when I first looked at it. Hosea 6, verse 5. And I checked this one, and it's been corrected. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a 1613 error. I don't know. Anyway, they're saying they went from showed to hewed. But when you look at that verse in Hosea 6:5, therefore have I hewed them by the prophets and slain them by the words of my mouth. You say, well, you put an S on there, which is all they did. Therefore have I showed them by the prophets and have slain them by the words of my mouth. You think, well, that's what sounds right there. It's not. The Masoretic text, the Hebrew text says hewed. He's got two negatives there. He not only hewed them, but he slew them. So that's where, they went back and you say, what happened? The guy he's probably put that together 1,000 times. Showed. It's all the way through the Bible. And so when he came there, and he just kind of looking at it, and then he was reading it and said, well, that's got to be showed. That ain't hewed. And he put that S on there. So that got put in, had to be corrected. And then the Malachi 1:8, this whole, and if ye offer was omitted in the 16:11. Now, it's here. So, but it was omitted and then added back in the 1613 edition. That's in Malachi 1:8. And you'll see you've got it in your King James Bible today. So the Travailus was one that showed up, and then this last one, number 7, from you to ye in 1 Corinthians 11:2. It's got you twice. Let's go there, look at it. Trust me, this is not my forte, man, of this going through and parsing all these words. He says, now I praise you, brethren, that ye remember me, that you see that ye remember me? It says you. Now he says, I praise you, and let's see, where's it at? Now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me. That's how it's in and the you was changed back to ye. Everything we're going to talk about here doesn't change not one single doctrine in the Bible. It doesn't cast doubt on any doctrine. These are just simple typographical errors, spelling errors. It's unbelievable. And yet they'll try to tell you that your King James Bible's had so many changes. I mean, if you went through all these, they'd bore you to tears. Then there's second-class alterations. In the 1613 edition, now the problem with the 1613 is you correct problems, but then you also create a few more. That's the way printing is. I've got at home, and this is not a first edition, but Dr. Ruckman's study Bible. I've got a first edition at the house. And I think this might be a second or third edition of it, but I've got a first edition. And if you look at the errata sheet, there are 10 pages of errors in the notes, in the center column. Almost 98% of them are the notes that Dr. Ruckman's notes, okay? Because all that had to be, electronically typeset because it was all new. The version of the Bible was already out there electronically, but they still got an error in there. And I didn't find out where it was at. I couldn't find out where it was at, but I found it at the house, and I wrote in the correction. And you said, what happened? Something on the computer. Somebody did, a glitch or whatever, and it allowed a change in the text or an omission in the text. I think it might have been an omission. I can't remember now. But I've got, 50 other King James Bibles to verify it. And that does happen. So now they've been correcting every time you get a new, I don't know how many editions there are now of the study Bible, but every time you put out an edition, you keep correcting. Because I notice his notes are, I can find the error in the one at home, but I can't find it here because it got corrected, which is good. So in the 1613th edition, in Genesis 42:31, them back to him. Numbers 15:38, there to them. Luke 5:30, the to their. Okay, you see how major these are? In 1 Corinthians 11:17, the omission to not. I think there's 2 knots in that passage. Let's look at that one. I'm trying not to bore you to death with this. 1 Corinthians 11:17. Now in this I declare to you, I praise you not, that ye come together not for the better, but for the worse. So one of them was omitted that they put back in. Leviticus 7:25, the word fast to fat. Somebody slipped an S in there by accident. Deuteronomy 12:21, you see the difference there? See how good you are. There's no difference, it's a typo. It should say shall to shout, S-H-A-L-T, in Deuteronomy 12:21. I don't remember putting that typo in there, but maybe I did. And then Ezekiel 5:5, thus to this. I mean, just groundbreaking stuff here, man. I mean, how can we even trust the Bible? And then all the other stuff we talked about, they literally attack the deity of Jesus Christ. None of this, none of this stuff even affects doctrine at all. And in some cases where I'm just going to give you the cold hard facts, it doesn't even affect the truth. I do believe that God can account for every jot and tittle. I do believe that it's preserved every jot and tittle. Now, can I defend everything? No, I cannot. I just believe it. Genesis third class alterations, Genesis 2:24, and shall cleave versus and cleave. In Numbers 3:41, it says all the firstborn versus the firstborn. 2 Samuel 13:29, gat him up upon. Now, I've checked every one of these. Of course, they're there, but they changed it from gat him upon. I mean, you see, it's just like, they're small things. Leviticus 26:40, the iniquity versus the iniquities. And iniquity can be singular or plural. In fact, I believe we had one about sin is changed to sins. I don't know if we got to that one yet, but sins was changed to sin, or sin was changed to sins. I don't know which way it was. It really doesn't matter, because either one can be correct as far as the truth goes. I didn't say the jot or the tittle, but as far as the truth goes, nothing was affected. Judges 16:30, all the people versus the people. 1 Kings 4:27, unto King Solomon's table, and the difference here, and I kind of got that over on the other end there, to King Solomon's table. So they changed it unto from to. Then John 5:3, a great multitude versus a great company. Now that's the only one where there's actually a difference, and I don't see much of a difference between the two, between a company and a multitude. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit more further revisions, and this brings us all the way up to like 1850. They were still making some things here, and this is where it gets a little complicated. Okay, how many of you have a Scofield Bible? Okay, you got a Scofield with you right now? Good. you have the Oxford line, okay? If you have a Dr. Ruckman Study Bible, you have the Cambridge line. You see, is there a difference? I'm going to show you several of them. There are a few differences, okay? What we're going to find out is this thing has, if you have the Ruckman Study Bible, that uses the Cambridge. This one lines up with that. I couldn't find any differences in that, but we're going to see. The thing is that, and I want to. The Cambridge and the Oxford came out about within 10 or 20 years of one another. And what happened was it begins in London. That's where the original printing took place, was London. But Cambridge got permission to print. Oxford got permission to print. And we're talking, this is 20, 30, 40 years down the line. And both of them put out a version of the King James Bible. Practically identical, except for the several small places. And let's look at one of those. That's in Ruth 3:15. Okay? You turn there in your different King James Bibles. All right? Luke 3:15. The Cambridge says, he went into the city. What does yours say in the Oxford? She went into the city. Am I right there? Huh? And it says what? Who has he? What? Hold it now. Man, you're killing my study here. Let me figure out what I did here. Because I looked at it.
You can read the note he has at the bottom of it, but don't read it out loud.
Okay. Everybody got she? It's a she shed? Huh. So what was I looking at? You got a first edition there? And it says she. Mine says she up here too. Huh? I don't know. If they both agree, then there's not even an issue here. But I thought the Cambridge says he.
Says there's 3 editions of the 1611. Only one of them reads he, and the other 2 reads she.
Okay.
There's another one.
Well, I don't know what I was looking at. Hold on a second. Okay. Now this even says she went to the city. Okay, well, not an issue with that one. Huh? I don't know. Yeah, go ahead and check it. I don't know where. I thought I double checked these, and I thought, well, Cambridge says he, and the Oxford says she, and I thought I checked them. Okay, turn to, let's see here. No, this is going to be the same too. Look at Song of Solomon 2:7. This is the he, she thing where it says, till she please, till he please. Well, I thought I was going to have at least one to show you that. Now I can't. I have no idea. Does it? Okay, well, they all say she then. Okay, no issue. The thing was going to get at is if you did have one that said he, they both went into the city, because you can find the verse in 3:16 and 4:1. They both go into the city, so there's, as far as the truth goes, it doesn't affect the truth. You're what now? What now? Oh, Song of Solomon. Okay. I thought you were going to tell me that with the way the last one, you've got one. I thought, anyway, they probably all going to. How many of you have he? Probably everybody. Okay. All right. Joshua 19:2, and I have no idea. Here I was going to be able to show you a difference, and I can't even show you one. I cannot figure that out, man. Does it say at the very end, or Sheba and Moladoth? And? Everybody got and? Okay. All right, well, I cannot show you a difference. Let me see here. Okay, we got some more to go through here before we get done. Let me move on before I make a greater fool out of myself up here. Here's some other things about orthography. You see down there the words assuaged to assuaged? That's some of the corrections they made in the spelling. Mortar to mortar, but it's the spelling of it. Loathe, brazen. Now you see that word clift? To cleft, okay? And there's one that's clift, C-L-I-F-T to C-L-I-F-F, okay? I probably spell it C-L-I-F-F every time. I never thought to spell the word clift with C-L-I-F-T, but I think we're going to see a difference. I'm hoping I can show you some differences here between the Cambridge versus the, what's the other one? Oxford. Then you got the word plaster, cuckoo. You can see all the different changes there. Let's move on. Okay. And I'm going to skip and run down to here, and then we're going to see if there's any difference here. Jeremiah 34:16. Now, Cambridge got the right to print in 1629, and by the time they got done, their standard, you know, that's 1769, but there's a 1762, but that's pretty, I'm sorry, 1762 was the Cambridge standard. Oxford, around the mid-1670s, got the ability to print, or the legal standing to print, and then they're the ones that put out the 1769. Now, do you have, what do you guys have in the Oxford? Huh? Whom he had set. What do you guys have in yours? Ye? He is he. Okay? Now, look at 2 Chronicles 33:19. Second Chronicles 33:19. How does your read when it talks about sin? Say sins plural? Sins plural. What's theirs say? Sin. Okay? Now here's a big one, Nahum 3:16. Nahum 3:16. But what you're going to see here is that in no way is the truth of the text, the doctrine of the text. You see, is there one correct and one incorrect? Probably. But in Nahum 3:16, yours says, does it say it fleeth? Fleeth? And yours says, flieth. Now, it's talking about a worm, isn't it? And a worm turns into something that flies. So that's true. But when it flies, does it flee? So it fleeth. Do you think one is more correct than the other? I do. But you know, it's like some things that when the King James Bible added something that's not in the Greek in the New Testament, and the reason they did it is because it was more true and more revelation than the actual word that they had in there. And that's the situation with the word Easter. It's not found in any manuscript. The word Passover is the word, yet they changed it to Easter. You say, who led them to do that? I believe the Holy Spirit led them to do that, because the Holy Spirit is reading the heart and the mind of Herod, who is intending after Easter. That's what his intent is, not after Passover. Could it Passover and Easter fell on the same day? I believe it did. So both are correct. One is perfect. Okay, I don't want a correct Bible. I want a perfect one, and I've got a perfect one. You shouldn't want anything less than that. That's the reason why I'm not a TR man, in the sense that, do I believe in the Textus Receptus? Of course. That's the Greek in which the King James Bible came from. But if you ask me which is better, I'm going to tell you my King James Bible. Why? Because it's purified, it's advanced, and God's preserved the thing word for word. So you got the word flieth and the word fleeth. You know, there are probably people that would throw away their Bible over that. It's like straining at the gnat and swallowing the moose instead of the camel. I mean, think about it. To get all wound up about that and then look at all the changes that the new Bibles make blows my mind. But yet they'll say it. Now here's where the word, look at Job 30, verse 6. And this is just a difference in the spelling. All right. Job 30, verse 6. Do you have Cliff, C-L-I-F-F-S? Okay. You have C-L-I-F-T-S? All right. I don't think it's worth splitting the church over that. And then in Matthew 26, 39. Okay. Matthew 26, 39. See, those in the Oxford have the word farther, and we have the word further. Now, you know how the hymnals are written, farther along. We'll know all about it. Should it be further along, we shall know all about it? Just a joke. Yeah, it's a division in the church. Further, yep.
So, besides Cambridge and the Oxford, in Scotland, it was published under Collins. I looked it up, and it says he went into the city.
Oh, okay.
Scotland one. Well, not wrong, just
Different, yeah. What they would do, they would go back. We're not talking about, forget about the spelling. But when it became to a word, they were to go back to the King James translators' work to verify what the word didn't matter whether you thought it fit the text or whatever. That's the word, and that's what they did. 2 Kings 19:26, you'll see that there's a space between house and tops in the Oxford edition. And it's just one word in the Cambridge. I don't think that's where it's splitting church over. The same way in Exodus 34:23, men, children. They're one word in the Oxford. Now, that's interesting. Housetops is one word in the Cambridge, and men children is one word in the Oxford. And two words. And I couldn't tell the difference. It wouldn't matter to me how they put it. Yep, that's okay. You know, space or no space. 1 John 5:8, there's a lowercase spirit. Now, I checked, and the Cambridge, the Oxford, the replica Bible, or this replica King James, they all had it capitalized in 1 John 5:8, the word spirit. But evidently, there is versions of the Bible that are out there where it's a small s. Anybody got a small s in 1 John 5:8? Take a look. Okay. So now I'm going to back up a little bit and give you just a little history, and I'm done. In 1611, the 1611 edition was printed by Robert Barker. And that says, I got Baker, it's Barker. Another typo, not my fault. Robert Barker, he was the printer to the king. And that one introduced about 350 to 400 typeset printing errors. Then they went back in 1613 to correct a lot of those errors. So the 1613 edition fixed many of the original typesetting errors, but also added a few. The 1613 edition was called the Judas Bible because Judas was put in the place of Jesus in Matthew 26:36. Okay? The 1613 eliminated the Apocrypha from between the Testaments entirely. So they were between the Testaments in 1611, and by 1613, that's like what, 2 years? They decided, we don't need this at all. And it was eliminated from between the Testaments. It was never a part of canon, never a part of Scripture. It was between the Testaments. Then there's this other edition that showed up. It's called the Wicked Bible, also known as the Adulterous Bible or the Sinner's Bible. And what happened was Robert Barker, the same guy, okay? And this other fellow named Martin Lucas printed it in 1631, and the printers dropped the knot, you know. Somebody sneezed and the knot went flying across the room. And from Exodus 20, verse 14. You say, well, how serious was that? Well, it's the seventh commandment that reads, thou shalt commit adultery. King Charles I had Barker and Lucas hauled before the Star Chamber, some judgment seat, fined 300 pounds, stripped of their printing license, which was, to have a king's license to do that. And most copies were seized and destroyed. Only about 25 copies survive today, worth tens of thousands of dollars each at auction. As I find them, I'd burn them. Why? Because you're not going to desecrate the Word of God and put it up for sale. If it's that bad, it doesn't. Or you know what I do? I not write it in. Anyway. Then you got the 1638 edition, which fixed most of the remaining 1611 mistakes. 1663 edition made the italicized words uniform throughout. You'll notice, I meant to pass these around here. You'll notice in these, there's these little words, and you think, well, who put those in? They did. And it's the italicized words. They're small little, almost like subscript in there. All right, who wants which? Okay, here, take the photographic, the replica. Just kind of take a look at how they were. I was reading some of it. It reads exactly like your King James. It reads exactly. It's just the font is so weird. Just something they chose during the day. I think they went to a Roman font. I don't know how much later, but they went to a Roman font, not too far or farther along. Further along, yeah. Sorry, I got to get that right. Let's see. In 1701 edition, they added Ussher's chronology. And they probably made some changes and did some other things. The 1769 edition, they have the standardization of spelling and punctuation with thousands of corrections. And when we say corrections, they updated the spelling. If you could see, when you read through that and you look at that, look at how the words are spelled. The word son is S-O-N-N-E. For son. You know, your son. Ye, I think, oh, let's see, trying to think of some of the words that, double E's on things, and I mean, but the thing is, you can find the same word misspelled or spelled a different way. I think you can find it spelled a different way like 3 times in one page. It's possible. Why? Spelling hadn't been standardized. So in 1769, it got standardized. But that's not a change in text. You do understand that, right? Man, when you start changing the text 30,000 times, taking out the word Lord, taking out hell, taking out Jesus, taking out the word Christ, yeah, taking out the word not, yeah, you've done some damage to the text. And it has to be on purpose. You don't make that many changes without it being on purpose. And the one that did that was a philosopher. The one that made all those 30,000 changes, named Origen, was a philosopher. He did it on purpose. He did not believe in the deity of Jesus Christ. To him, he was just a man. He may have fell in love with the philosophical, the philosophy of the Bible or the philosophy of God or whatever. Maybe he fell in love with that wisdom. But he certainly didn't believe in the God of that book. And when he translated it, he made clear. Because there's attack after attack after attack, which is what we have today in these new Bibles. Finally, you have the 1850 edition, final proofing pass. I've got there, even today you have printing errors, but the text is preserved. The text is preserved. Yes, you can come out with one where there's a printing error. I've got a Bible, it wasn't so much a printing error, it was a collating error. You start through the Bible and all of a sudden it picks up Leviticus again and takes it, I mean, it's just all over the place, man. You turn there, you don't know where you're going to wind up. You say, what happened? Well, the collating machine or, a DEI hire did the collating. I don't know. But you're going to have printing errors in just about anything that comes out. And hopefully you don't have it in the text. Maybe it's in the notes or something like that, or in the headings to the chapters. But you can't have it in the text too. But usually it's found out, then it's corrected. Why? The text has been preserved. We have it. Psalms 12, 6 and 7. It's as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. And there's 7 really major additions here, or revisions, whatever you want to call it, but that corrects these things. What you'd find out if you took that home and you read it very carefully with that script, which is very difficult, you would see that you have the same book in your lap as what I'm passing around. It's the same book. There might be a misspelling here or there. There might be, but it's the same book because they always went back and corrected according to what they received from the King James translators. And just because the wording's updated or the spelling's updated does not change the word. Okay. Well, that could have been well. I will say this. In Jeremiah 34:16, the reason why it's a little bit more substantial is whom ye had set, which is in the Oxford, is actually, whom ye had set is actually the correct 1611 reading. Whom he had set was a mistake by the 1769 edition, which was introduced, but later fixed by Cambridge, but left standing in Oxford. Here's what Gail Ripplinger says. Gail Ripplinger, pure Cambridge edition, urges or argues that the Cambridge text is the more historically faithful to the translator's work than the Oxford text. Okay? So that's the argument. And you can see that, saying that there are 50 to 70,000 changes in the King James Bible from 1611 to now, and finding out that, there's only 24,000 and 20,000 of them were, or actually 95% of them were corrections or updating in spelling, orthography, and that the actual mistakes were corrected were printing errors. And once those were corrected, you've got the same Bible, and you can see that if you can read that font. That font takes a little looking at. All right, any questions about what we covered? I think you saw a few differences there, but yep. Yes. I like them to be honest about what they do. If they're going to change something, they say, okay, you can look at, and I don't know where it's at. It's in Timothy. 2:15 is probably around 2:18, somewhere in there. And it's the word throughly. Throughly furnished unto all good works. Okay. A lot of Bibles will take the liberty to put in the word thoroughly. You say it's the same word. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's like the word always and always. There's a difference in how those words get defined. Just by taking the S off of it. And when it comes to the word throughly versus thoroughly, whatever you're going to change in my Bible, you let me know. If you're going to change names, like Nelson did, they went in and they said, we're going to change some names. It's not going to be N-O-E for Noe. It's going to be the Old Testament spelling of it, N-O-A-H. Okay. But then they went and took the word Jesus in Acts 7 and Hebrews 4 and changed it back to Joshua. Hold it now. Now you're messing with it. Now you're changing things that I can't recognize. Why did you do that? And what did you destroy by doing it? That's why it's important. Every jot and tittle is important. I just can't stand up here and tell you that I've got the knowledge to explain every jot and tittle. But I know God can, because that's what He said. He said, not one jot or tittle will pass from the law till all is fulfilled. It is intact. It is preserved. And to say that we don't have it is nonsense. What kind of God would say He's going to judge you by something and then you don't even have it? He's going to judge you by every word of this book. And if you don't have it, you can say, well, I didn't have it. Well, it was in 350 different versions, it's all over the place, but it didn't read the same. God He can't judge you, not righteously. He's going to judge you righteously because He's going to have one book. And whatever you've got, and you say, what about foreign languages? Well, when Solomon was writing in Hebrew, there was, they came to Jerusalem to hear his wisdom, and guess what they got it in? They got it in Hebrew. It was up to them to translate. In Greek, there it was in Greek, in the Greek empire of the world, that's what they had. They had it in Greek. Now we have it in English, universal language. And you have what you have as an absolute to translate from. It can either be as good, I'll say it's possible. It can be good. It can be fair. It could be poor. It could be horrible. You say, how would you know? The standard. Okay. All right, anybody else got a question? Okay. Let's take a break. Oh, it's 5 after already. Quarter after.